Welcome to another episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your clowning host, Dom, and in this episode, we're going to take a look at two modern slasher films to rival the OG classics from the 80s. Both films are written, edited, and directed by Damien Leone. First, we get into the 2016 slasher film about two women encountering Art the Clown on Halloween night, Terrifier. Then we get into the 2022 supernatural slasher film, the follow-up to Terrifier. 1 year after the first film, Art the Clown is resurrected by an unknown entity and pursues a teenager who is destined to defeat him on Halloween night in Terrifier 2. So let's get our grease paint on and jump straight into the review. Writer and director Damien Leone made his directorial debut with The Ninth Circle in 2008, a short film that introduced audiences to the now iconic character Art the Clown. Initially, Art was not intended to be the central villain, but the character quickly became a breakout hit. Audiences connected with his eerie, silent presence, and Leone realized he had something special on his hands. As a result, Art returned as the lead antagonist in Leone's next short, Terrifier, and later in the anthology All Hallows Eve, which we did cover this past Halloween. That was the film that, if you want to go back and listen to the Halloween special, that's what movie we talked about. But All Hallows Eve incorporated both shorts, The Ninth Circle, and Terrifier, alongside a new wraparound story that was centered on Art. Following the success of All Hallows Eve, Leone set his sights on bringing Art to the big screen in a feature-length film. This marked a pivotal shift in Leone's career, as he fully embraced Art's potential as a malevolent force in the horror genre. Leone's approach to making Terrifier was driven by a desire to pay homage to classic American slasher tropes, while blending them with the stylish, often grotesque elements of Italian, oh my god, I'm going to butcher this. I think it's Giallo films. As he explained, his goal was to take familiar elements that we all embrace from American horror movies, combined with the graphic violence and atmosphere of Giallo films, hopefully creating something fresh and exciting. Leone drew significant inspiration from legendary slasher icons like Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, and Freddy Krueger, figures that left a lasting impression on him as a fan growing up. However, Leone was keen to distinguish Art from other famous horror villains, particularly Pennywise from It. He deliberately made Art the Clown a stark contrast, describing Pennywise as colorful while positioning Art as black and white, both in terms of his appearance and chilling, almost cartoonish menace that he exuded. And I think that's kind of why he also made him silent, was so that like it contrasted to like the way that like Pennywise was over the top, constantly talking, constantly being like harassing the kids in that film and the adults. Despite Terrifier being a full-length film, Leone kept the narrative relatively simple and straightforward. The plot follows two women, and they're stalked by a gruesome killer. And they're gruesomely killed by Art on Halloween night. And then, while the storyline centers on these two victims, Leone was far more interested in showcasing Art's terrifying presence and his gruesome practical effects. As a result, some of the characters, particularly Tara and Don, were not fleshed out as they could have been. And in hindsight, Leone expressed regret over the underdevelopment of the character Victoria Hayes, Tara's sister, who is, we'll see what happens to her at the finale of the first film. He said, my biggest regret is I wish I had fleshed out Samantha Scaffiddi's character more, and admitted that she was the second heroine, Victoria, and I feel I didn't give her the depth she deserved. In 2015, Leone took to crowdfunding to finance a feature-length film, Terrifier, launching a campaign on Indiegogo. The campaign caught the attention of filmmaker Phil Falcone, I don't know how he pronounces it, who stepped in to provide the necessary funds in exchange for a producer credit. This collaboration helped bring Terrifier to fruition as a full-length feature, which would go on to cement Art the Clown's place as one of horror's most terrifying and unique figures. Alright, so guys, let's just get right into Terrifier.
What if that guy did this to your car?
What guy? The clown?
Do you really think someone slashed my tires?
Well, he knows this is your car. He saw us getting into it earlier.
Hey, handsome!
Cut it out.
My friend wants your number.
Kill you.
What is it, Tara?
Dawn and I are sort of stranded. She has a flat tire and no spare, and I was kind of hoping you could pick us up. What is wrong with you?
What, did you think he was gonna hack me up into little pieces or something?
A facially disfigured woman who survived a massacre the year before is interviewed for a talk show. Once off the air, the host, Monica Brown, played by Katie McGuire, makes cruel comments to her boyfriend about the woman's appearance, only for the woman to burst out of hiding and mutilate her. On Halloween night of 2017, two friends, Tara and Dawn, played by Jenna Cannell and Catherine Cochran, respectively, drunkenly leave a party and encounter Art the Clown, played by David Howard Thornton, who follows them to a pizzeria. Art is kicked out by the restaurant's owner for smearing his feces over the bathroom walls. The girls discover that Dawn's car's tires have been slashed, and Tara calls her sister Victoria to pick them up. Victoria is played by Samantha Scafidi. Art returns to the pizzeria and kills the owner and a worker. They are played by Gino Caffarelli and Eric Zamora, respectively. While waiting, Tara asks a pest control worker, Mike, played by Matt McAllister, to be let into the apartment building he is working in to use the restroom. There she encounters the cat lady, played by Puya Moseni, a deluded squatter who believes the doll she carries is her infant child. Art attacks Dawn and subdues Tara with a sedative. Tara awakens, bound to a chair, and sees Dawn suspended upside down. Art forces her to watch as he saws Dawn in half. Tara escapes, but Art shoots her to death, then attacks Mike. The cat lady discovers Art with her doll, and in a plea for return of her child, attempts to show motherly compassion by cradling him. Victoria arrives and discovers Art, who has mutilated the cat lady and is wearing her scalp and breasts. Art chases her and decapitates Mike's co-worker Will, played by Michael Levy. Victoria then finds Tara's corpse as Art attacks her with a makeshift cat of nine tails. Mike knocks Art unconscious, and the two flee and call 911, but Art recovers and kills Mike, then hits Victoria with the pickup truck. As Victoria lies unconscious, Art begins to maul her face. The police finally arrive, but Art shoots himself before he can be apprehended. After the police discover Victoria is still alive, Art's body and those of his victims are taken to a morgue, where Art reanimates and attacks the medical examiner, who is played by Corey Duvall. 1 year later, Victoria is released from the hospital after rehabilitation. She is revealed to be the disfigured woman from the film's opening. Thus, the events of the film showed the massacre that took place the previous year. Now let us move on to some trivia about the film Terrifier and learn some things about the behind the scenes, the production, and the actors. David Howard Thornton was the sixth person who auditioned for Art the Clown after Mike Giannelli retired from the role and acting altogether. During the audition, he began miming tasting his beheaded victim's blood, but then added salt to it to improve its flavor. This is what won him the role. And honestly, from All Hallows Eve to this, you don't really see Art too much in that. He's in most things, but I really don't. I feel like David Howard Thornton really embodies this character a lot more. Mike Giannelli, or however to pronounce his last name, I'm probably butchering it. I think he did a pretty solid job, doing what he can for the role without, obviously there were a bunch of short films put together, and they added like a wraparound story to it, and they include him more in it, and they kind of made him more the center of all that film. But I think David Howard Thornton really, he really showed like what this character can do. He continues like the same like feel from the shorts. He really took it upon himself to be like, hey, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it really well. And I think he also was a mime for a while, if I remember correctly. So I think obviously he had that to begin with, and I don't know. To me, he really embodied that character a lot more so than I feel like, and I think he gave him more of a character with his movements and his body language than we saw before. David Howard Thornton ad-libbed a moment of Art the Clown flipping off Victoria after she snaps his foot with the railroad spike. This made the crew laugh so much that director Damien Leone decided to keep it in. This happened in the raw footage, which was not technically part of the film. So actress Samantha Scafidi, who plays Victoria, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. A lot of these are going to be, I don't know if I pronounced it right. She had to be digitally removed from the shot because she wasn't supposed to be there. And I think that's kind of crazy. When I love when that happens, when somebody does something that they kind of ad lib, they improvise, they do something a little bit different, and it's happened to me before too, where something from the script, you write something down, you write a line or you write something, and then the actor kind of takes it and they change it a little bit, or they give it something more, or they change it up altogether, and they give you something else that it just makes everyone either crack up, or they make them like gasp, or like you can just feel like, oh yeah, that was the right move, that was the right thing to do for this. Because sometimes you write something and it's like, I don't know if this is gonna fall flat, and sometimes it doesn't work out like when you think in your head, and then when like the actor sees it and they're like, let me do this instead. And sometimes giving them that leeway helps. Sometimes some people are a little more strict because they want it to be done a certain way. I can see why, though. Like if it made everybody on set laugh, especially with this type of film, I think that was the right choice. The underground tunnels used in the film were part of the abandoned Seaview Hospital. These tunnels were used to transport the dead out of sight of other patients where they were to be cremated. Which is scary I think scary into itself. Like that, just being in those tunnels would freak me out. Like they're used to transport the dead bodies like out of sight of other patients, and I'm wondering, like, do all hospitals have that? They have to, right? Like they have to be like, let's take them around here, and like this is like the back rooms back here where they can like move these bodies without people seeing them and getting like Because it has to be, right? Because there's like all this space in the hospital and you're only seeing certain parts of it. And I understand like the morgue, they have to get him to the morgue or whatever. But like, that's crazy. That unto itself I think is creepy. When asked during an interview in April 2023 if there are any criticisms of the film that surprised him, director Damien Leone, he said that he said, this is a quote, "I get constantly accused of being misogynistic. Of course, today it's inevitable. What really shocked me was being called transphobic based on the scene where Art skins and wears the woman. It makes me laugh because it couldn't be any further away from what I am. Raised by all women and everything. It's so funny to me. I think I'm just so comfortable tackling sexual violence because I was raised by all women that I don't think about those things when I'm doing it. I don't think I'm offending. I'm not trying to offend, so there's really nothing I'm not afraid to show." And, I mean, you could go on and write theses about, like, that whole thing about whether or not horror film is inherently sexist, misogynistic, whether or not, because, I mean, like, the whole point of most, if not all, like, slashers, most horror films, deal with, like the final girl, we have scream queens, even in, like Creature from the Black Lagoon, his whole attraction to these people who are investigating the areas because there's a woman there and he sees her and he becomes instantly attracted to her, and like that's why he starts attacking them, right? So because he wants the girl. I mean, you can even say that about like Dracula. I think the only one who initially starts off a little different is Frankenstein, but eventually with the Bride of Frankenstein, it moves away towards what we normally see in these horror films. And I mean, we can go on and on about that all day, right? Like, should we consider that like a form of like misogyny, right? That like, why do they have to go after the girls all the time? Why do they have to this or that? But then you have something like when like a male survives, like then at that point, like, are you saying that it can't happen? Because it does happen every once in a while. Is that part of it that we've seen like with like Freddy's Revenge, the second Nightmare on Elm Street? The only reason why he survives is because there's a girl there too. So is it like, I don't know, you can read into certain things, but like that whole film though too is about his queerness, and that also just brings up more about like whether or not horror is about like the queer experience or not also. But yeah, I mean, I could see why he would get like these would be brought up, but I mean at the same time he's killing. There's like 4 guys that are killed in this as well. So it kind of, I feel like it's like an even balance in the end for this, at least for this film. So I don't understand where, and like I get where I kind of I can kind of see, I not understand, but I can kind of see where they're like, oh, transphobic because he wears the woman's like scalp and breasts, but okay, like that, it has nothing to do with it. It's not like it's not like to me if the transphobia would come if he was like that, like dressed up as a woman the whole time, and like they're making fun of him the whole time, like they're calling him or her him, and like it would be a completely different story. It's like he's just using a disguise like a clown to kill his victims. I don't know. That might be that one. I feel like is more of a stretch than anything. Yeah. Let's just move on to the kill counter. Kill counter. We've arrived at the kill counter. This is the part of the podcast where we go over the kills and deaths in the film. for the short runtime that we have, we've got 7 kills throughout the film. So let's go over each and every one. So we start off with Steve, who's the restaurant owner, the pizzeria that Tara and Don go into. He gets decapitated off screen by Art the Clown, and Art makes a mess, and that's when he makes a mess in the bathroom and he gets kicked out. He comes back and he decapitates him. His head is converted into a jack-o'-lantern for Ramon to find. And Ramon, who ends up getting killed himself, after finding his boss, Steve, dead, attempts to phone for help, but gets his fingers cut off with a cleaver by Art the Clown, who then proceeds to stab Ramon multiple times in the face and also puts tongs in his eyes until he is unrecognizable. Dawn, she gets hung up upside down naked. And at first it was like, what are they going to do? Like, this poor actress had to be upside down for the scene, and the blood's rushing to her head. What are they going to do? And, her legs are spread apart, and Art, comes up, and he just starts sawing her in half in front of her friend, Tara. And, literally, I was like, oh my God, isn't there bone there? I guess he is sawing through it, but, Jesus Christ. And he gets through her, pretty fast. Almost completely splitting her in half. I think he leaves it to a little bit in, her head together. And then he just kind of leaves it. It's just oh my God. This is pretty gory. And I was like, whoa. I mean, I'm not opposed to anything gory or anything. I was just I was not expecting this. I knew there was going to be a lot of gore in this movie, but not like this. This is kind of crazy. And then we see that Tara, when she beats up Art with a 2x4 and gets him down to the ground. But then Art, he gets up and this is where it really shocked me again, because I thought he was going to do something like I don't know, punch her, slap her, hit her with a bat or hit her with something. But then he just pulls out a handgun and shoots her in the head. And then it's click, click. I was like, whoa. And then he goes over to his bag and he gets out another clip and he goes over and he's all and he just keeps shooting. I was like, man, actually that's kind of funny. Okay. And later her body's found by Victoria. Then we get to the cat lady who lives there, and after Art has her quote unquote baby doll or her baby, she's able to soothe him a little bit, pretending he's her baby. And then the next we see is that she's scalped and skinned and left to bleed to death. And it's just yeah, that's exactly what Art would do. Will, who is another one of the exterminators that Mike has called over to help, because when he starts hearing all this stuff, he calls Will in, or trying to call Will. He shows up, and then he gets stabbed in the head with a knife and has his throat slit with a knife before being decapitated with a hacksaw by Art the Clown, who then kicks his head away like a football. Lastly, we have Mike, who's trying to find a way to break down the door, but then is accosted by Art. He knocks him to the ground with a canister, and he crushes his skull with multiple stomps. And it's kind of sad because it's Mike was just trying to do his job. He was just trying to be an exterminator here, just do his thing. And then all of a sudden, this girl shows up and is like, "Can I use your bathroom?" And then he's like, "All right, dude, it's not really my bathroom, but I was just about to get ready to start pumping this gas and to exterminate or whatever he's doing to exterminate the whatever bugs or whatever." And yeah, those were some pretty solid deaths, I will say. Some were just a little wow, maybe it's a little over the top. But for overall, for being a more lower budget film, I wouldn't say a low budget, but it's enough that where he had to get it off of, obviously, Indiegogo and get it from some people, that he did a pretty good job with it. He did a pretty good job with the budget he had for the special effects. So, after Terrifier grossed over $400,000 at the box office, Damien Leone was eager to return to the world of Art the Clown with a bigger, bolder sequel. In February 2019, Leone shared exciting news on social media. The first draft of the screenplay for Terrifier 2 was complete. The announcement included a photo of the script's cover page, signaling the next chapter in the Terrifier saga was officially underway. However, Leone's vision for Terrifier 2 had actually been brewing for much longer, dating all the way back to 2008, when he first conceived an idea involving an angelic warrior-like heroine battling Art. The character would later ultimately evolve into Sienna Shaw, a pivotal figure in the sequel who Leone had always known would be integral to the next installment. In contrast to his previous film projects, which were often written around part-time jobs and limited resources, Leone dedicated himself to fully writing Terrifier 2. He spent 3 uninterrupted months on the script, immersing himself in the creative process. His primary focus was on crafting a character who could stand alongside Art as a compelling adversary, a heroine who could match the terror of Art with her own strength and complexity. Sienna was my favorite character I've ever written, Leone has said, highlighting the deep connection he felt to the character. The screenplay itself, he noted, was much grander in scope compared to the first film. Despite this, Leone didn't initially consider the film's budget as he wrote, letting the story kind of unfold organically without constraints. One key element in Terrifier 2 was the need to establish a worthy adversary for Art, one that would mirror the dynamic of iconic superhero pairings like Batman and the Joker. Leone envisioned a narrative where Art was not only a menacing figure, but also part of a larger, almost mythic struggle, with Sienna emerging as a resolute foil to his chaos. During a lunch meeting, Leone and actor David Howard Thornton, who plays Art, explained this dynamic to Lauren Lavera, the actress who would portray Sienna. In addition to focusing on Sienna's development, the script also delved into the lives of Sienna's family, her younger brother Jonathan, their mother, and Sienna's friends, all who play significant roles in the unfolding story. When Leone had secured private funding for the film from a group of investors, he launched an Indiegogo campaign to raise additional funds, aiming to finance particular ambitious practical effects scenes to help secure a well-known actor for the project. The campaign exceeded all expectations, raising $125,000 in its first week alone, and eventually reaching an impressive $250,000 by the end of its run, 430% of its original goal. Wow, that's kind of crazy. I didn't know that. That's ridiculous. That from just that, obviously from the short films and All Hallows Eve, working its way into just Terrifier. That's kind of crazy that they saw all this potential, and they're like, you know what, we gotta get on this. How do we do it? Filming began in October 2019, but the production soon faced an unexpected hurdle: the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Like many films, Terrifier 2 was forced to halt principal photography due to safety concerns and global restrictions. Despite the delays, Leone and his team continued to work behind the scenes, with Leone focusing on designing and perfecting the prosthetic makeup for Samantha Scaffidi's character, Victoria, while whose disfigured face would play a crucial role in the sequel's plot. Shauna's costume, a striking angelic ensemble garnered significant attention when production still was released, receiving a positive reception from fans and critics alike. However, Rivera later shared that while she initially liked the costume, wearing it over the course of the shoot became increasingly uncomfortable. I began to feel disdain for it, Rivera confessed. The costume was not only heavy, but caused her blisters, adding a physical toll to the mental and emotional strain of her portraying such a demanding role. After months of uncertainty, filming quietly resumed, and Terrifier 2 finally wrapped up on July 10th, 2021. The journey to bring the sequel to life has been long and fraught so many challenges, but the finished product would go on to exceed expectations, with fans eagerly awaiting the return of Art the Clown and his new nemesis, Sienna Shaw. And so let's get straight into Terrifier 2.
So, did you figure out what you're dressing up as tomorrow?
He wants to dress up as a real guy who murdered 9 people last year.
Oh, you're not doing that.
It's just a costume. You think that guy's still out there?
What's up with you and this clown all of a sudden? You're like obsessed.
They never found his body. What if he decides to come back here?
I wouldn't worry about it.
Wait a minute, aren't you that guy from the costume shop?
Sir, what are you doing?
It wasn't me.
He was covered in blood on his shirt and his hands when he got here.
I'm telling you, it was him, Allie. Right down to the little black dot on the tip of his nose.
You're really weird, you know that?
I believe him.
About what? Something really bad's gonna happen tonight.
No, I know when Jonathan's lying, okay? I could hear it in his voice. Something's wrong.
Look, we're gonna have fun. Stress-free environment.
Yep.
Speaking of surprises, kids, we have a very special guest with us today. All the way from Miles County, please welcome Art the Clown.
After being resurrected by an unknown entity following the Miles County Massacre, Art the Clown, still played by David Howard Thornton, brutally murders the coroner examining his body and goes to the laundromat to clean his blood-soaked garments, where he encounters the little pale girl, who's played by Emily McLean, a mysterious entity in similar clown attire. A lone patron sees Art interacting with the girl, who's invisible to him, before being killed. 1 year later, teenager Sienna Shaw, played by Lauren Rivera, is preparing her Halloween costume, a Valkyrie-like character designed by her recently deceased father. Her younger brother, Jonathan, played by Elliot Fullman, has become fixated with Art since discovering art of him in their father's sketchbook. That night, Sienna has a nightmare about a show called The Clown Cafe, starring Art. In the dream, she has to fend him off, and the only thing that can save her from his jerry-rigged flamethrower is her sword. She awakens to a fire burning the dresser the sword was resting on, but the sword is mysteriously unscathed. That day, Halloween, Jonathan sees Art and the little pale girl at school playing with the dead opossum and gets the blame. Sienna has a panic attack with her friends, Allie and Brooke, who are discussing Victoria Hayes' mutilation of talk show host Monica Brown. Her friends are played by Cassie Hartnett and Kaylee Hyman, respectively. Art breaks into Allie's home and brutally maims her to death to pass the time. Jonathan shows Sienna and their mother, Barbara, his father's sketchbook filled with newspaper clippings revealing the little pale girl bears resemblance to Art's first victim, Emily Crane. He believes that their father knew how to stop Art, saying that he gifted her the sword for that purpose. Sienna departs for a Halloween party. Jonathan flees after Barbara slaps him. Then Barbara is shot and killed by Art. Art kidnaps Jonathan when he returns home and steals Sienna's sword. At the Halloween party, Brooke spikes Sienna's drink with MDMA, and she has a panic attack after seeing the little pale girl in the crowd. Brooke's boyfriend, Jeff, played by Charlie McElveen, is driving home when Sienna is lured to the Terrifier attraction at the old abandoned carnival. The little pale girl imitates Jonathan, pleading for a ride home. So while Sienna goes searching alone after a big argument on the way there, Art murders Jeff. Brooke is chased into the park and murdered as well, and Sienna is being unconscious after discovering her body. Sienna awakens to find Art using a scalpel on her brother and begins attacking him with his own weapons. The siblings discover Art is immortal and he wears them out with his endurance. The Terrifier attraction is slowly revealed to be the location where Art chained up his victims in the original Ninth Circle short. He stabs Sienna with her father's sword and he throws her into a portal to hell, where she encounters the Clown Cafe again. Sienna dies and is resurrected by the sword. She decapitates Art while he is biting into Jonathan's calves, and the little pale girl takes his head and leaves the two alone. In a mid-credits scene, an orderly at Miles County Psychiatric is heard humming the Clown Cafe theme song, and tells another orderly she picked up the tune from Victoria, who is continued to be played by Samantha Scafidi. Victoria is down the hall, reinstitutionalized, writing Vicky plus Art, and obscenities on the wall with her own blood. She gives birth to Art's living head. Victoria's eyes glow exactly like the little pale girl's eyes. Once again, we come to some trivia now about the film Terrifier 2, and we learn some things about the behind the scenes, production, actors, everything else, right? Scenes shot in the Terrifier haunted house were filmed in a real haunted house called Fright Factory in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The filmmakers used what was already available to them, and honestly, if some of those animatronics are actually in there, I kind of want to go see it, because some of them were pretty scary. There's a big one that just comes out of nowhere that's just like, oh my god. I was like, man, that's okay, this is real. This is a scary haunted house. Yeah, I mean, there's not really too much else about it. I mean, I would love to shoot at a haunted house sometime as like part of the set scene, because it does. I mean, when you're in the haunted house, sometimes it doesn't feel as scary, because you're like, there's certain parts where sometimes there's not really much to see there. But I feel like if it was part of like a film and they're being chased or something, like it could be pretty scary. Like if you've ever seen Hell House LLC, a haunted house could be a pretty good like setting for, I mean, like a fake, like a haunted house attraction would be a pretty good setting in a film. The post-credit scene would originally reveal Art growing out of the back of Victoria's head, but once Malignant had a similar get-up for its villain, Leone discarded it and shot another sequence where Victoria gave birth to Art's head, and I think honestly that works better for this. I think that would have been weird with Art growing at the back of her head. It would have just kind of been like, wait, is he like Voldemort or something? Like her giving birth to the head to me. So the way that I interpret that, and maybe I'll get more into it with when I get into my final thoughts, is more that he's being rebirthed, Like the little girl took his decapitated head. Now he's being born again. So now so that he can keep coming back. I mean, obviously that's how you're supposed to. I think you're supposed to interpret it. But I'm just kind of glad, because I feel like the other way too, like wouldn't have come across as much. I don't know. I feel like you wouldn't have got that just straight from her, like on the back, him on the back of her head. The little pale girl was originally going to be more of an Italian horror, Edgar Allan Poe inspired girl wearing a sundress with flowers, but after the success of Terrifier, Damien Leone saw pictures pop up of people dressing up as Art the Clown for Halloween, including several women and little girls. He knew he had to do something with this, so the girl was redesigned as a small girl version of Art. The little pale girl, is partly based on a devil child character from the Federico Fellini directed segment Toby Dammit of the anthology film Spirits of the Dead, played by young Marina Yara. And honestly, I think her inclusion, I think I'm going to say it for my final thoughts, everything I want to say about this, but I do like her inclusion. I'll get to it in my, like I said, final thoughts, but like her design is pretty good. I like the idea that like some people can see her, some people can't see her. That she's always, that like Art definitely like sees her and she's there around him. I think it works for the film too really well, helps to expand some of the lore and stuff, and yeah, like I think her inclusion is pretty good, and I like that they did it. And now honestly, I'd like to see that Federico Fellini directed segment, Toby Dammit, from Spirits of the Dead, because I want to know what like that comes from. I want to know what because I know that a lot of these are just kind of not based off of, but like he takes a lot from the Italian horror for this. Like a lot of the gore and effects, like that's straight up like Gaiello, is that how you pronounce it? I don't know how I'm pronouncing that right. Like horror, like that Italian type of horror that we see like with like Suspiria or something, or like Zombie or something. But yeah, I think including her is a great thing. Great inclusion. Director and special effects creator Damien Leone stated that the most complex kill scene to shoot was that with Allie in the bathroom. They were shooting the scene for 2 days when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and all filming had to be temporarily halted. Leone used that time to redesign the kill and prepare the special effects for when they could resume shooting again. All the previously shot material was scrapped, and the new scene was shot over 2 weeks. Leone credits Casey Hartnett for relentlessly screaming throughout the long shoot, which really sold the horror. In the ending scene where Allie's mother discovers Art mutilating Allie's body, Leone built a life-size animatronic dummy of her. The whole room was a built set, while the operators used rods under the bed and behind the wall to move the dummy. He used rubber gloves with tubing in her chest to make her appear to be like breathing. And when David Howard Thornton, who saw the realistic dummy come to life for the first time, he said that it scared him so much that he almost soiled himself. And honestly, I feel like I would too. If we'll get into the kill counter, but man, like when I first saw the scene, I was like, okay, all right, he just topped himself with like the gore. I thought Terrifier like had like some pretty good gore, you know, when like he sawing her in half and you know the mutilated bodies and all that. But then you get to this one and Damien Leone's just like, hey, how do I make it even worse? How do I make it even crazier? How do I top what I did last time? And yeah, you know what? He did it. He really did it. And honestly, see, like, okay, I think there's like a difference between like gore, like Saw or Hostel, and it's just like that's the focus of the movie. And it's just like, okay, this is a little ridiculous. But then there's something like this where like it's more than just like about the gore. It's like what it represents and like why is he doing it, and like the fact that it's like it's just this random person that he just did this horrible thing to, and sometimes it's just unexplainable like that, like in real life. And yeah, it's just pretty crazy, you know. Like that's why I can't wait to see Terrifier 3 and see where he goes with that. Let's move on to the kill counter again. Kill counter. Now we come to the kill counter again, and we're going to go through the deaths and kills in Terrifier 2. In this sequel, we got one more death than the first film, and with 8 kills Terrifier that happened in Terrifier 2. There are quite a few that come up that are part of a dream, and I really didn't want to count that because like they're not real deaths. Like that doesn't really happen. It's a lot. It adds to like the gore and the things that we see on screen. But if it's not like a real person, if it's not on screen, I very rarely count them off screen too, or they happen before. I only will count them, you know, if they get shown again, or you know, it's vital to the plot. That's when I'll count it. But let's get into this really gory film. First up, we got the coroner who's choked, has his throat slit, his eyes plucked out, and head pulverized by Art as he's resurrected by the little pale girl. Then we see when he goes to the laundromat to clean up his clothes, the laundromat customer looks over at Art as he's playing patty cake with the little girl. But all the customer sees is Art playing by himself, which is kind of strange. So this is where we get that first hint that like not everyone can see the little girl. He cleans up the mess that the little girl made and impales the guy that's just sitting there at the laundromat customer in the head with the broken mop. Next, we get Ricky, the shop clerk. He sees Art acting crazy, kind of weird. You know, puts on the sunglasses. He brings Sienna her backpack that she left, and you know he's kind of like fed up with him. Tells him to like get out, but then Art goes and locks the door. He smashes his head with the bottle. Then Art takes the bottle, the broken glass, and stabs it in his eye. While Ricky's knocked down, Art takes a cleaver, stabs him in the head, repeatedly decapitating him in the process. And it's like, wow, that guy didn't do anything to you, really. He just told you to get out. I guess that's enough grounds for you to be upset and be like, well, I'm going to take it all out on him. And next we get one of the most torturous scenes for anyone in a movie I think I've ever seen, ever. And it's like, I get why he put in for the gore and everything, but damn, dude, like you went all out for this, for this minor character. It's like, man, this poor girl. So next we get Allie. She attempts to open her window, but is unsuccessful because Art's in the house, and he was pretending to be a trick-or-treater. But he gets in, and Art grabs her by her robe and slams her onto the bed. Art grabs Allie by the hair and pulls her upward before slicing the left side of her face vertically and pulling her hair so she'd bleed more. Art lets go of Allie, and she falls onto the floor, crawls over to her vanity before being grabbed again by the hair. Art slices her scalp off slowly with the scissors while Allie screams in pain. After cutting off half of her scalp, he rips it entirely off, which reveals Allie's skull cap. Art slams Allie onto her bed once more and flays her back. He stabs Allie a few times before ripping off the skin of her back, revealing her flesh and spine, and then grabs Allie's right arm and forces it into a foreign position, breaking it. Art flails her broken forearm a few times before ripping it off completely clean. Art rolls Allie over and grabs her left arm before vertically ripping her left hand in half. Art slices Allie a few more times, sprinkling blood throughout her room, before happily skipping away and returning downstairs. Thinking Art is finally gone, Allie rolls herself off the bed and onto the carpet, where she crawls over to her phone. She hears the sound of a phone call from Sienna and moans in pain. Allie crawls to the phone before Art returns to her bedroom. He pours bleach all over her body and forces salt into her wounds before ripping the left side of her face off, revealing her skull. As soon as Allie's mother enters her room, she finds Art playing with her daughter's still breathing body, and Allie only manages to utter the word "Mom" before she can succumb to her mutilations. And man, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know why he decided to take out so much anger on this girl or take out so much on her. It's just crazy. But I get the film needed a little bit more gore, or at least enough gore to be like, man, we're doing more than we did before. We're gonna give you guys a little bit more. And he definitely topped it. This is probably one of the goriest films ever I've seen. There's plenty out there that I've seen, but this one is just like, man, more recently that's just been like willing to be like, let me just go straight for the gore. So the next, Allie's mom is killed by Art when she discovers her daughter's still breathing body, and because she says "Mom" to her, like she cries out to her. We don't see her get killed, but we do see her decapitated head, and Art uses it for a Halloween candy bucket when he's giving out candy to little kids. Barbara Shaw, who is Sienna and Jonathan's mom, enters the garage, sees her car has been vandalized with shaving cream, toilet paper, eggs, and a smashed pumpkin. On the windshield, the word "bitch" was written, causing Barbara to believe her son Jonathan had vandalized her car, which I was like, why would he vandalize your car? She calls her daughter Sienna, who is at a Halloween party, notifying her of the situation. After the call, though, she frustratedly cleans up the car, and as she wipes shaving cream off the driver's side window, she sees a smiling Art waiting inside. He points a sawed-off shotgun at her and shoots her in the face through the window, blows off her head completely. And it's another one of the things where it's like, man, this is just violent to be violent. But I think it works well, too. It has a reason why the little kid would go back. It's he's like, he kind of had a vision of it a little bit, kind of, and he goes back to, stop it from happening. Then we move on to Jeff, who is Brooke's boyfriend. He moans in pain as he gets stabbed in the penis by Art. Brooke turns around at the sound and sees him fall over as Art the Clown comes into view, knife in hand. Brooke screams as she witnesses. She hears the sound of Jeff's screams in pain as Art rips Jeff's penis off, and then he passes away. Last, we got Brooke. After a short chase with Art, she cuts a corner to a dirty bathroom and falls over, aching in pain. Art appears behind her and hides a small bottle of acid from her view. Brooke, thinking she has the upper hand, grabs a nearby plank of wood and threatens Art with it. Art reveals the spike club that he had been working on earlier in the film. Brooke pleads with Art before he suddenly splashes I'm probably gonna butcher this too. Fluoroantimonic acid onto her face, causing her skin to burn severely. Brooke screams in pain as her skin literally begins to boil. Art swings at Brooke's arm, then at her back, causing her to collapse. Art pulls Brooke by her legs and swings her at her kneecaps, completely bursting it open. Then he swings up at her chest repeatedly, and Brooke spits out blood as she makes a final gagging sound, killing her. Art reaches into Brooke's chest cavity and removes her heart before taking a bite out of it. Before blood spurts everywhere. And yeah, oh my god, man, that's another one where it was like, this one is just so gory. I really like this. I can't wait to get to my final thoughts, guys. But like, there's a lot of gore in this, a lot more than Terrifier, which I thought Terrifier would have a lot in, being more low budget. But I'm glad that he got a bigger budget to make it even crazier. But yeah, guys, let's just let's get right into my final thoughts, okay? Okay, so this is going to be my final thoughts for both films, Terrifier and Terrifier 2. But let's start with Terrifier, the first film, and it's the follow up to All Hallows Eve. I would say All Hallows Eve is like the Tracy Ullman show, and Terrifier is actually The Simpsons. So Terrifier, the first film, the second film, and we'll get into the third film. But for now, let's talk about the first two, specifically Terrifier, the first film. Alright, so Terrifier, it's not too long. It's shot, I feel like if they did color correcting, they did what you can tell they did. I don't know. You could just tell it's very amateurish. It's very, low budget. It's very, like first film vibes, right? But to begin with, I don't think Damien Leone's had like that many hits at all, if any. And I think all he really worked on was just like doing the short films that were part of All Hallows Eve, maybe some other short films. But anyways, he's been developing like this idea for a while, and I love that. I love when creators they take like an older character that they built, and they're like, you know what, let's just do that. Let's just make a movie based on that character. It'll be easier than coming up with like a whole new original idea. But like that, I think. Well, I mean, so with the Ninth Circle, obviously it featured art. He had an idea for this character. Then he took that character and made Terrifier, the short film. Then when along came, like the time to put together, this anthology film that people, wanted him to make, and he was like, I want Art the Clown more because I like this character, okay. So then, when given the chance to make giving him his own film without being an anthology, I think this works for like the first start. You do get a sense that like it's more grounded in like reality, like Art. You don't really see him get injured too much, so it makes more sense why, like, okay, like that didn't really do anything to him. You don't really suspect he's too supernatural with anything, but also it's just kind of like I don't know. I feel like there's parts of the film that we're missing, that like maybe there's like deleted scenes where like he wanted to shoot more and he just didn't, and like he cut things down and he cut things out, and like. Yeah, like Victoria, there was like a time where he said like he wished he could have fleshed her character out more because, like now what's her name? Sienna Shaw becomes like the main character, the one who I assume in Terrifier 3, I haven't seen Terrifier 3, but would have a hand in like defeating him again. And I think they're probably just kind of locked in this battle of like good and evil. Like once Art the Clown comes back or comes into the world, Sienna Shaw is given him wings and is ready to, take on take down whoever. But still, I don't know. Like you said, the runtime, the kills are like okay. I think the one that tops everything for it is Dawn's death when she gets sawed in half. That's pretty gruesome. But overall, I don't know. I would give this one, I'd say maybe like 3 stars maybe. There's not too much about it that I really liked. I thought it was just fine. I think it's a fine film, but I hadn't watched it in so long, right? Taking the time because it came out in 2016. But from all that time on, people have been putting it on kind of this pedestal as like this great film, like, oh, it's changing slashers as we know it. Well, Art the Clown deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of horror now. And it's like, does he? Like, I haven't seen any of this, and I don't know if he does. You know, it's going to be the big 3, Freddy, Michael, and Jason, probably up there for like the slash genre. The 4th one, you know, that's going to be the hard one to like. I think that'll be more of a personal choice than anything, but you know, people will be saying that it's art now because he did say that he brought, you know, something to this. But overall, I don't know. I say maybe like 3 stars out of 5. It's good. It's not bad. It's just Terrifier 2, I think, is a way better film. It's a way better use of like your budget, especially when you're gonna up the gore, you're gonna up the cast. You're gonna do. I think, you know, that whole scene with poor Allie. She's just like torn apart, and it's just crazy. It's like, yeah, see, that's what we'd like to see. If you're gonna do gore, do it like that. Do it where it actually makes sense. And you know, this poor girl, and then like you're bringing in a character who's there meant to like to fight off art. I love this expansion of the lore. I love that it's also kind of vague. That's why I want to see Terrifier 3 so badly, because I'm like, I want to know what happens. Like, tell me, like, they get more into the lore, right? So, like, I love this idea of, like, there's something more to this, right? There's something to, like, the little pale girl, right? There's something to, like, Victoria at the end birthing art, right? Like, bringing him into this. I'm assuming he's going to grow from there, from that head. And that's why we get him in the 3rd one. And we get to see, we're going to see more of Sienna Shaw and Jonathan. And, like, what did the dad drew, like, some of the stuff. Like, what was he seeing before he died? Like, is that why, that's why he killed himself? I think the mom knows more to it, too, before she died. Because she like just rips apart that like journal that the dad had, and it's just so crazy. Like I love the quality of the film looks better. The color correction, the direction, I feel like I love. There's scenes that are like, I love when you get to see the ride, the Terrifier, and it's just like. Everything about this film is just an upgrade from the first one. And even All Hallows Eve, because All Hallows Eve 2, like, is just not that. I'm not saying that they're not great, or they're not good, or they're bad. They're just okay. It's just, I feel like people like were like overhyping that film. All Hallows Eve. They overhype. I think it's just because Art has a cool design. Art the Clown himself has a cool design, but they're not that, like, Terrifier is not that great of a film. Terrifier 2, though, that just amps everything up. It expands on the lore like doublefold. It gives you better effects. It gives you better quality of the film, the shots, the everything, and that's why I got to give that one a 4 out of 5. That's a really good one. I honestly, I will say, if you're gonna start, you don't have to start with All Hallows Eve. You can go and watch Terrifier, and if you're like, or you're like, it's okay, I highly recommend getting the Terrifier 2, and then you'll be like, okay, I see what all the hype is around art more. Yeah, this one is pretty good. I really like it. Like I said, like I just like I want more with this, like this lore of like, what is art? Is art an entity? Is he a person? Because he keeps getting resurrected, obviously. What is the little pale girl? What is with the clown cafe? Right? Was that something that happened to Sienna when she was like a kid? Is it because it's like a dream, right? Or is it supposed to be something that actually happened? we're not sure. At least from this point, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll get better explanation later. But yeah, so like I said, so 3 stars for Terrifier, 4 stars for Terrifier 2. We're going to get into Terrifier 3 for Christmas, so stay tuned for that one. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about these 2 films. Did you find these 2 films to be gory? Do you like the lore being set up in the second film? Which Terrifier is your favorite, and why is it part 2? We want to thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to get every new episode downloaded. Do you have any personal or fictional, paranormal, supernatural, or unexplainable stories? We love to read them on the podcast. Please send your stories, recommendations, or anything else to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show more support, you can follow our socials on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok @horrorboxpodcast. Also, you can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It really helps out. Until next time, maybe you should stay away from the strong, silent type. This is Dom, signing off from the Horrorbox.
Drop on by the Clown Cafe, your favorite meals on wheels. The menu is disgusting and it's full of special deals. Nothing here is good for you, so grab yourself a tray, 'cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Gobble up your order quick before it runs away, 'cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Why not visit after school and have yourselves a bite? An appetizing appetizer certain to delight. We haven't done it right unless it makes your teeth decay, 'cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetites obey, 'cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little